It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story.
We live in a very hard circumstances, suffering from various things.
A teenage victim of an Israeli airstrike, one of the latest killed in the relentless Gaza assault. Shaban al-Dalu burned to death in a tent encampment outside a hospital. Tonight, America confirmed it could cut military aid to Israel if the humanitarian situation does not improve. Also tonight, the killing of a daughter in a father's own words, the murder trial over Sarah Sharif. Here's the 999 call.
Your daughter has died.
I killed my daughter. I killed my daughter.
The German coach answering England's call. Thomas Tuchel agrees to become the Three Lions' next manager. The victims displaced by war and now weakened by cholera. A special report from inside Sudan's quarantine zone.
I'm rich, I'm handsome, I have a great family, I'm going to be the number one builder in New York. Listen to me. You're going to have a life you can't even dream of, Ivana.
Fake, classless and a hatchet job. Why Donald Trump is unhappy about a film featuring his early business life. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. The United States confirmed tonight that it has given Israel 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing US military assistance. That warning to Benjamin Netanyahu's government comes after an intensified assault against the Palestinian territory, which we will tell tonight through the story of the killing of one teenage victim. Well, he died in an airstrike on the Al-Aqsa hospital in central Gaza, one of 15 public hospitals in the territory. It's been targeted repeatedly over the past 7 months. A number of different locations around the compound have been hit, geo-located here by our data and forensics team. 4 people burnt to death in the most recent attack. The Israeli Defense Forces say they were targeting a Hamas command center. Well, one of those people was this man, 19-year-old Shaban al-Dalu. Our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, reports on his life and death. And a warning, this includes an image of Shaban on fire in the moments before he died.
In a different place, in a different time, Shaban would have had a bright future ahead of him. But Shaban was born in Gaza, where people now measure their futures in hours and days.
Hello, I'm Shaban from Palestine. I'm a student studying computer system engineer. I was displaced from the north to south under the occupation threats.
Shaban was the eldest son. When the war started, he left home in Gaza and built this tent for his family in the grounds of Al-Aqsa Hospital.
I'm taking care of my family as I'm the oldest. I have 2 sisters and 2 little brothers and my parents. We live in a very hard circumstances, suffering from various things such as homelessness and limited food and extremely limited medicine. We are in the blood bank.
Later that day, he donated blood to help the wounded in Gaza. Shaban continued to study in his tent, but walked for half an hour each day just to get internet access. He set up a GoFundMe page to raise money to take his family to Egypt, to safety. Then, 10 days ago, he was injured in an Israeli strike while sleeping in a mosque. Shaban was still recovering when another Israeli airstrike hit the hospital grounds on Sunday night and his tent caught alight. We are about to show you an image from the final moments of his life. With a drip still attached to him, his arms reached out and then went rigid in agony as the fire engulfed him. Shaban was burned alive. His mother, Ala, was also trapped and died next to her son in the inferno.
Shaban was on fire. My father was busy with my younger brother, so I couldn't help but run towards Shaban to try to help him. People stopped me from getting close to the danger, saying the civil defense was on its way to put the fire out. I kept saying, "But my brother's on fire, my brother's on fire. Please let me go." They wouldn't let me. My brother was burning in front of my eyes, and I couldn't do anything to help him. It's an indescribable feeling. No one in the world can understand it. Can you imagine seeing your loved ones die in front of you? Your brother, your role model in life, your mother, your rock and caretaker.
The Israeli military said it hit a Hamas command center. As yet, they've shown no evidence of that. They've also said that the fire was started by secondary explosions in the hospital car park. It is one theory.
It was a painful scene. It's hard. I saw my cousin and my uncle's wife both on fire. They were moving around trying to stop it. I really don't understand what we did to deserve this. We're displaced families. What did we do wrong?
Shaban's final months were spent hiding from the fighting in a place where there is now nowhere to hide. In life, he had dreamt of memorizing the Quran and becoming a computer scientist. In death, he has become another figure in an unfathomable number, 42,000, the Gaza dead. Shaban was 19. He would have turned 20 tomorrow. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
The life and death of Shaban al-Dalu. Well, Sky's international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn joins me now. And Dominic, we heard before about America's warning to Israel over its actions in Gaza. And tonight it appears there is movement too from America over Iran.
Yes, what the Americans are saying is two things. They're saying that they've received assurances from the Israelis that when they eventually get round to retaliating for Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel a couple of weeks ago, they will not strike Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. That will be a relief not just to the Americans, because if they do that, that could lead to Iran retaliating in a way that could escalate things dramatically, either with more ballistic missiles against Israel or against the Gulf states. Possibly American bases based there as well, so who knows where that would lead. But what they are also saying is they think that their promise and the fact they have already sent part of a new high-altitude anti-missile defence system, as well as 95 American soldiers. So for the first time, American boots on the ground during this war in Israel. All of that, they say, they feel has eased Israeli concerns. So reading between the lines, there may have been a bit of a deal there. We'll give you the system as long as you don't do your worst when you retaliate against Iran. But what's curious is American officials are also saying that they don't believe, or they're not entirely convinced that the guarantees they're getting from the Israelis are cast iron. And they point out that the Israelis have in the past said one thing and then done the opposite. And they did that most dramatically 2 weeks ago when they said that they were open to the idea of a ceasefire in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and then a couple of days later dropped 80 bombs on Hassan Nasrallah's bunker, killed him, and massively escalated the conflict with Hezbollah. So what they seem to be saying is that they are giving this missile system to the Israelis in the hope the Israelis do not strike facilities that could massively escalate the situation in Iran. But they're not entirely convinced, or if Israel doesn't do that or does go ahead with striking those installations, they won't be surprised. So I think make of that what you will.
Dominic, live for us there in Tel Aviv. Thank you. The murder trial of the father of a 10-year-old girl heard his distressed 999 call today, in which he said he had killed her. Irfan Sharif is heard saying he beat up his daughter, Sarah Sharif, too much. The court was told that this followed more than 2 years of abuse, during which Sarah started wearing a hijab when she went to school to conceal, the prosecution said, injuries to her face and head. Her father, stepmother and uncle deny murder. Our correspondent Sabah Chowdhury reports now from the Old Bailey.
Behind Sarah's smile, concealed a grim reality. A child subjected to a campaign of abuse for 2 years, say prosecutors. Today, the court heard her father's call to the police from Pakistan as he admits to killing his daughter, he says, while trying to punish her.
Take a deep breath and tell me what's happened.
I cannot. I physically punished my daughter and she died.
Your daughter has died?
I killed my daughter.
How have you killed your daughter?
I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much.
Irfan also left a note next to Sarah's body. I love you, Sarah, he wrote. I'm running away because I'm scared, and I swear to God my intention was not to kill her. The court heard that Sarah's home in Woking, a place that should have been her sanctuary, was anything but. A neighbour told police she had heard a single high-pitched scream days before Sarah's death. Others heard screams, smacking and crying. At school, teachers noticed bruising on her chin and under her eye, and that Sarah would use her hijab to hide her face. The prosecution's allegation that Sarah began to wear the hijab to conceal her injuries. Here at the Old Bailey, the jury heard some harrowing details about Sarah's abuse. This included traces of blood in the kitchen, on a vacuum cleaner, and even on a cricket bat. The police also said that they found potential weapons with Sarah's DNA on it. This included a rolling pin and also the buckle of a belt recovered from a children's Wendy house in the garden. Police! The first police officer on the scene also gave evidence, telling the court he found Sarah's body left on a bunk bed with bruising on her face and little finger. Charged with her murder and causing or allowing her death, her father, Arfan Sharif, her stepmother, Binish Batul, and her uncle, Faisal Shahzad Malik. All three deny the charges against them. Today's evidence, the first real glimpse into the brutal final weeks of this 10-year-old girl. Sabah Chowdhury, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
To Sudan now, and a nation already contending with a devastating war is now facing a new, quieter killer. People displaced from their homes are facing a deadly cholera outbreak, which is spreading fast across the war-torn country. And an unusually heavy rainy season is making things work. Well, the problem is especially severe in Sudan's eastern states. Sudan's health ministry says there are now more than 24,000 reported cases, up significantly from 15,000 in late September. In the past 2.5 weeks alone, the number of deaths has gone up from 506 to 681, though experts believe these figures are an underestimate. Kassala State is at the centre of this deadly crisis. Our Africa correspondent, Yusra El-Bakhir, had exclusive access to the main quarantine centre there.
Under the blue folds of fabric is a teenage girl, too weak to walk or talk. Rushed into this quarantine ward to treat the cholera, draining her frail body. This is the battle for life you don't see. Illness spreading fast in wartime conditions, battering bodies young and old, weakening men to the point of collapse.
This is the hidden front line in Sudan's war. There may not be bullets and bombs, but there are thousands of displaced people suffering from disease because of the state of collapse.
There are cries of discomfort in this designated children's ward. Many of their families fled armed violence to cramped, unsanitary camps, exposing their fragile frames to a much more quiet killer.
She's lost her childhood. She can't even recognize the family we lived with back home. Even when I come to the hospital, she can't recognize me. She just starts crying.
Health workers are shielding people from death in the toughest of circumstances.
How has the war affected you and the work that you do?
There's so much work to do, says Umayma, much more than before. And when she goes home, she deals with sick people too, as the state she's from becomes riddled with disease.
Heavy rain and dirty drinking water are the main drivers of cholera. Now, on top of that is ongoing war and mass displacement. There is so much pressure on the services in this state. We have 3 million residents, and now that number has doubled.
Heavy rains have also ripped through key infrastructure, like this dam in the mountains of Sudan's Red Sea state, a major source of clean water, now in ruins.
This is really the last thing a war-torn country needs, the destruction of the main water supply to the de facto capital, housing thousands of people scattered from violence across the country.
And in the de facto capital, Port Sudan, are camps full of very sick people, surviving on donated food and questionable water. All my children are back in Khartoum, says Kulthum. I'm stranded. I can't be there with my children, and I can't live here with dignity. Her condition is a sign of the state of play. Armed violence driving people to cities that can't handle the pressure, and spreading disease claiming what's left of their lives. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Eastern Sudan.
Now, Gary Lineker once said that football is a game that, in the end, the Germans always win. And the FA seem to be hoping some of that gloss will rub off on England. Thomas Tuchel has agreed to become the national team's first German boss, as our sports correspondent Rob Harris reports.
After a 3-month search, the man who has accepted football's impossible job, becoming the first German and only third foreign manager of the Three Lions. Thomas Tuchel taking on all the pressure, expectation and hopes of the nation. Endorsed before the official announcement by the England captain, Harry Kane having played under Tuchel at Bayern Munich last season.
We have to wait and see. Obviously, I know Thomas well from last year and fantastic coach, fantastic person. So I'm sure the guys at the FA will contact me when they know more about it.
Kane knows how close England came under Gareth Southgate to a first men's trophy since 1966, reaching 2 Euros finals, raising the bar for his successor. Under-21s coach Lee Carsley didn't pass an audition, losing to Greece at Wembley last week, seeming to end his hopes of keeping the job permanently. The FA's job advert seeking a coach with a strong track record, delivering results in the Premier League or leading international competitions, and significant experience of English football. Tuchel fits the bill on all counts, from his 15-month stint at Chelsea, winning the 2021 Champions League, followed by FIFA's Club World Cup. The proven winner England need, with a track record of trophies at Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain. But England being managed by someone who isn't English, still dismaying some in the game. Despite Sven-Göran Eriksson and Italian Fabio Capello already taking on the job.
I'm very patriotic. I think we should have an English manager, but obviously the field was very small to choose from because Englishmen don't get jobs managing in the Premier League very often now.
But nationality is no barrier for the FA. Tuchel bringing tactical acumen and motivational skills, but also at times a fiery personality. The spotlight of England will expose the 51-year-old to a new level of intensity as he tries to land the World Cup for the Three Lions. Rob Harris, Sky News.
And Rob is here with me now. There are always those who would want an English England manager, Rob, as we heard in your piece there. But is this a surprise?
Well, it has been wrapped up very quickly. Thomas Tuchel has been linked with club jobs like Manchester United in the past, and it seems the FA have acted very quickly to secure Thomas Tuchel's signature, and there will be many who question his nationality. Of course, England do have a track record of recent success with the Lionesses, with the Dutch woman, Sarina Wiegman, so that is the path that indeed Thomas Tuchel has to follow. But this is the FA veering from a blueprint really established since the St George's Park HQ was open 12 years ago. It wasn't just meant to be somewhere to develop English playing talent, but also what they would refer to as the England DNA coaching philosophy and provide that pathway for managers. And indeed, Gareth Southgate was on that, someone who'd come through the system. But this is very much the FA looking to the outside again, as they did with Eriksson and Capello. There will be questions over how much is being paid, money that could be for grassroots football. And there will be some challenges with the fan base. There is an element of xenophobia amongst the fans. We heard it in Germany at the Euros with anti-German songs being chanted in the streets. But now England do have a German manager, the great footballing rivalry now in the dugout with the German. They're tasked with trying to lead them to what no Englishman has done since '66, to that major title. It does look like Lee Carsley will remain in interim charge for the rest of the autumn for the Nations League, but then the job begins in earnest for Tuchel next summer and beginning that World Cup qualification campaign. We'll see what the back pages have to say about it a little later. Rob, thank you.
Now, the chair of the inquiry into the crimes of a man who abused the bodies of more than 100 people over 3 decades has said the funeral sector is in urgent need of regulation. The chair of the inquiry, Sir Jonathan Michael, said anybody could set up as a funeral director, run the business from home and keep dead bodies in their garage, and nothing could be done to stop them. Our Home editor, Jason Farrell, reports on a warning: you may find some of the content distressing.
In March, Legacy Independent Funeral Directors in Hull was raided by police over concerns about the way bodies were being stored. One of their clients, Mike Collinson, had received ashes he was told were of his wife Jean, only to later be told by the police that Jean's body hadn't been collected from the hospital.
I was absolutely shocked. I couldn't believe that that I'd got a box of ashes there, believing it was Jean's. And there was Jean still at the hospital, never even been collected. So where they got the ashes from, where they got the official label from, I've got no idea. But yeah, I was absolutely shocked. It took me days and days to get over that.
Events in Hull and elsewhere prompted the chair of a national inquiry to bring forward his findings about the lack of regulation over funeral parlours.
The reality is anybody could become a funeral director, set up their business in their own home, care for the deceased in their own garage, and nobody has any ability to prevent them doing that.
In May 2022, an undertaker from Blackpool, Nigel Robinson Wright, was jailed for 17 years after he posed for photos next to naked bodies and invited a man to have sex with a corpse in his mortuary. The inquiry team noted other examples of malpractice within parlours.
Personal belongings not being disposed of in accordance with the wishes of the deceased, litter being left in a coffin, spitting on the deceased because they happen to support a different football team.
Members of the profession giving evidence agreed there should be greater oversight. It was the hideous crimes of David Fuller that set in motion an inquiry looking into how we treat the dead. Fuller was sexually abusing bodies in a hospital mortuary in Kent. Azra Kamal was one of his victims. Her mother, Nevras, reacted to the report.
Well, I'm completely shocked. Completely. I've used the funeral parlour 3 times for family relatives, and I presumed that they would be regulated. It's a shameful on the government. It's shameful on us and society, really, that we don't honour our dead and respect our dead.
The government says it will consider the recommendations and ensure the lessons of the Fuller case and others will be learned. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
Now, the riots which took place in many, mainly English towns this summer were being stoked by a network of misinformation which was anything but local. Research by Sky News has found that only 1/3 of the most influential accounts posting about the far-right violence were UK-based. The rest were from overseas. Our data and forensics correspondent Tom Cheshire has this report.
The reaction to the murder of 3 little girls in Southport rapidly descended into full-scale riots across the country. This apparently homegrown response came with international provocation. Although there have been limited reports about foreign involvement in the riots, Sky News has, for the first time, uncovered and mapped the networks on Telegram, the encrypted messaging app where the flames were fanned and the riots were organised. We've been working with Pros, an open-source intelligence startup which has a deep penetration of far-right and conspiracist networks on Telegram, to find out who is behind the messaging.
One interesting thing we can see here, especially considering this is the first day, is that the source of most of the information that people are talking about on Telegram isn't British, English language communities.
And this is a map of all those accounts for the 2 weeks after the Southport murders. The red is UK-based extreme right-wing or conspiracist accounts, and you can see it's dwarfed by other sources. Purple for non-UK-based English accounts, but also Germany in orange, along with French and Spanish at the top of the chart. The most widely shared content on Telegram during the initial 3 days of the unrest was primarily authored by non-domestic accounts from the USA and Europe. They played a significant role in shaping the UK's online discourse, amplifying far-right narratives and disinformation. Of the top 20 most important sources in those 2 weeks after the attacks in Southport, only 6 were based in the UK. The rest were abroad. This post from a right-wing Spanish politician and member of the European Parliament falsely said the attacker was a Muslim immigrant. We tried to contact the account but received no reply. Silvano Trotta was one of the other most influential users, ripping an article from the Daily Mail and posting his own comment, falsely peddling the name Ali al-Shakati. We asked the people behind those accounts for comment, and one of them agreed. Silvano Trotta is a telecoms entrepreneur based in Strasbourg, France, on the border with Germany.
You did this Telegram post which was viewed, hundreds of thousands of times, giving a false name. Why did you put that post out there?
It's always difficult. Who doesn't make mistakes? But all the same, he's still an immigrant, even if he was born in Wales, even if he's 17 years old.
We asked other accounts for comment but didn't receive a reply. Telegram spokesperson Remy Vaughan told us, Telegram is not a place to spread violent content. Moderators removed UK groups and channels calling for violence when they were discovered in August. To dissuade criminal misuse of Telegram, IP addresses and phone numbers of criminals who violate our rules can be disclosed to the authorities in response to valid legal requests. We are ready to cooperate with the UK government through the appropriate channels. In Southport, the memorials to the 3 murdered girls are still in place. One of the tragedies of the riots is that they eclipsed the grief the town felt and still feels. But experts have warned that the riots and the online reaction were not a one-off, but a playbook that could be used again. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Southport.
Weight loss jabs could get people back into work and deliver a shot in the arm for the economy. That's at least according to the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary. West Streeting has announced a trial of the drug Mounjaro to help people cut the kilos and return to the workplace. Yesterday, though, Sky News revealed the current rollout of another weight loss drug is treating significantly fewer people than planned. So will this be any different? Sky Science correspondent Thomas Moore reports.
Weight loss jabs have turned Sheila's life around. She dropped from a size 22 to a 12 in a matter of months, joined a gym and stuck to a diet. The health benefits are beyond question, but she's also found it easier to work.
It's just given me an extended period of time that I can do that work, right, without having to have a sit down or a lie down or a nap. I'm energetic about things, enthusiastic about things. I want to do things. I want to do things that, I'm that kind of person anyway, right? However, my weight was holding me back.
The potential added value of weight loss jabs isn't lost on the Health Secretary.
Is losing weight the key to getting Britain working, Minister?
Not in my case. The NHS and the manufacturer of a new jab called Mounjaro are to run a 5-year trial in 3,000 people with obesity to see if it gets them back to work and increases productivity. Sky News research has shown the NHS has been slow to roll out weight loss drugs so far, and an economic imperative may just be the nudge it needs to prescribe.
For those people that are so obese that diet, exercise, doesn't feel like it's having much of an impact, it feels like you're on a losing battle, I think the drugs can make a really big impact in terms of getting weight under control.
Over 8 million working-age people now report that health conditions, including obesity, limit the type or amount of work they can do. 26% of UK adults are obese. And according to the Health Secretary, people with obesity take 4 extra days of sick leave a year. But doctors warn health alone should be reason enough to prescribe drugs that have already been shown to reduce cardiovascular deaths by a fifth.
It's that designing policy and basing healthcare on people's potential economic value rather than their need and their health need is a potentially dangerous route to go.
But there is still a widespread view that obesity is a lifestyle choice. It's outdated and not backed by the science. This is politics, though, and research that shows obesity drugs get people off benefits, back to work and paying taxes is an easier message to sell. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Now, he doesn't usually hold back, and when it comes to those involved in a new film about his early business life, Donald Trump makes no exception. He has called them human scum and responsible for a hatchet job. The Apprentice is a biopic which follows the Republican presidential candidate's rise as a New York property developer back in the 1970s. It premieres tonight, and Sky's arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer has been speaking to some of its stars.
Yes. Hello, this is Donald Trump from Mr. Cohn. Thank you so much.
In a 1 a.m. rant on his Truth Social app on Monday, fake and classless was how Donald Trump described this film.
Ooh, cheese balls over here.
Sebastian Stan plays the man himself in The Apprentice, a story which depicts the presidential candidate's rise as a New York property developer back in the 70s, mentored by notorious lawyer Roy Cohn, who it's claimed taught him to deny everything and always claim victory.
The first rule is attack, attack, attack.
You can draw a line from Roy Cohn straight to all of this hate speech. In a way, once you start to see the playbook and you realize what these tactics are, you see that it permeates literally everything that he does.
I'll give you $50,000 now, like a signing bonus.
Not only does it show the former president having cosmetic surgery and popping diet pills, most controversially, it depicts him raping his first wife, Ivana, based on an assault detailed in her divorce deposition, a claim she recanted years later, vehemently denied by Trump.
We wouldn't be here if the film hadn't been, vetted up, down, left, right, and sideways with lawyers. To me, he might have to check his own memory because I think he's forgetting his own life. And I'm not sure how reassuring that is if you're running for president.
Online, Trump has called those involved human scum, saying the film's a cheap, defamatory and politically disgusting hatchet job aimed at thwarting his re-election attempts.
I do understand that he can be very frustrated and, he feels sort of misunderstood. You're not going to get more love and respect if you're talking about people eating cats and dogs.
Released just weeks before America goes to the polls, rather than sway voters, so far poor box office numbers in the US would indicate an element of Trump fatigue from cinema goers. Nonetheless, it would seem the very idea of people watching him undergo things like liposuction certainly seems to have got under Donald Trump's skin. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the broadcaster and commentator Ali Mirage and the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories we will be discussing, this on the front page of the Financial Times, which says Rachel Reeves has identified a £40 billion funding gap ahead of her autumn budget. Discussing that and more when we come back.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time to see what's making the headlines then, with broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman with us from now until just before midnight. Welcome to both of you. So, as ever, to the front pages, starting with the Financial Times, which says Rachel Reeves has identified a £40 billion funding gap ahead of her autumn budget and is gearing up for big tax rises. Meanwhile, The Telegraph leads on reports that the Chancellor is planning on increasing national insurance contributions for employers, which they claim is a U-turn for her. That is also on the front page of The Eye. It will hit workers, Reeves is told. Metro focuses on fresh proposals to give weight loss jabs to unemployed people living with obesity to help them get back into work. Mail reports on the ongoing Taylor Swift controversy. As it emerged, the Prime Minister met the pop star at her concert after she was given taxpayer-funded security while performing. Daily Express features a plea from Dame Esther Ranson, who has asked the public to urge their MP to back the assisted dying bill when it reaches Parliament tomorrow. That is also in The Times, which says a judge and 2 doctors will have to agree that terminally ill patients can be helped to end their lives if that law is passed. The Guardian leads on a vow from the government to overhaul draconian penalties that left many unpaid carers thousands of pounds in debt. The new Kaiser chief reads The Mirror after Thomas Tuchel agrees to become the next manager of the Three Lions. A reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you listen to our guests, so let's head straight to them. If 22 billion wasn't depressing enough, let's hit 40 billion, shall we? And go straight to the FT. Ali.
Well, the FT is covering the story. A number of them are now. It was meant to be 22 billion, as you say. It's now 40 billion. This is to not only keep spending standing still, but actually to make it increase in real terms so that the departmental budgets are not cut in real terms, and to give some more cash to the NHS, which is completely cash-strapped. We know that we've got a 7 million waiting list still. Hasn't come down post-COVID. In fact, quite the opposite. And the question now on everyone's mind is what is exactly going to happen, where the tax is going to come from. The big row is over employers' NI and whether that is effectively a manifesto pledge broken. And even the IFS, Paul Johnson, who's some sort of demigod now, says that effectively this is a breach of trust. I mean, this is a broken promise. They made it very clear they would not increase NI, income tax or VAT, but they never mentioned employers' NI.
Yeah, they boxed themselves into a beautiful little corner, and now we're in it, all of us, aren't we? But on the 40 billion, yes. I mean, there's only a few departments that are ring-fenced in terms of the protection of their money. We knew that some probably would have to find savings, as they do, it seems, every year. So is this just, 40 billion if we literally didn't have any austerity, or is there new holes that they have allegedly found?
I mean,
is it not clear yet?
It's not clear yet. According to this, that if more economic growth will reduce this number if it happens before October the 30th. I think, frankly, the number is kind of ridiculous now. It's kind of plucked out of the sky. We've had so much speculation over what's going to happen on October the 30th. So many hints and denials. It's actually getting in the way of growth. I mean, would you be investing whilst there is all of this uncertainty?
But, I mean, we know that businesses are, sitting on their hands now.
Yes, and
because business confidence surveys
wait for the budget. When we know how boxed in the government have made themselves. It reminds me of the Sue Gray report into Partygate. Oh no, we will only answer when Sue Gray. It's the same thing. Oh, all will be revealed in the budget, but we know that there aren't rabbits to be pulled out of hats. And, this whole thing about national insurance and the mantra that we will not increase taxes on working people that we heard in the run-up to the election. Now it seems to be coming down to a question of semantics. Yes. a question of...
Yeah, let's look at the eye while you talk about
Yes.
this then, which is the point Ali made as well, is when does it hit workers,
Yes.
etc. Anyway.
And so it seems that Keir Starmer has quite a kind of lawyerly interpretation of the language here, that this is not, if this is a tax on employers, not employees, but it is a tax on employment if you were to increase employment contributions to national insurance. You can raise a lot of money that way, and if you've got £40 billion black hole, you want to fill it however you can. But ultimately, it is employed people who will feel the burden of this, because either their salaries won't go up or fewer people will be employed. And this is at a time when the government says they want to be getting more people into work. You know, the money, the books have to be balanced somehow. And I worry about this, that if this is all about semantics and if Keir Starmer is being clever with words, is
why
that
not
going
just
to
be honest about
Well,
it? Why
I
not
think
say
it's going to
it's
damage
worse than we
public
thought? We're going to have to,
and we just cannot take more of losing faith in politicians. If you feel like, oh yeah, he's going by the letter of what he said, but not the spirit of it.
So why not just, front it up and actually be honest and say, look, these are whopping figures now. We need to fill them somehow. Apologies, we got it wrong. Or we made promises we couldn't keep.
Well, you could say that, but they could also say that they should have been a bit more open during the general election, because the IFS, to quote them again, was saying that there was this 20-plus billion black hole all along. I mean, it wasn't exactly a great revelation. And what Jeremy Hunt is saying is that according to his numbers, it was about 8.5 billion. There was a headroom left in the budget. So these are down to choices. Choices were made, including settling some of the disputes with the unions, including the ASLEF train drivers, the junior doctors. I'm not saying that those were wrong things to do, but you make choices. They didn't have to be made, but they were made. Now, there are two issues here. One is, to Jenny's point, one of trust. What does this mean in terms of trust? The second issue is this: what does it mean for workers, actual workers? This is going to effectively come out in wages in the long term, and also potentially reduce the opportunities for work. And the key question for this government, which it has not answered yet, is how is it going to get growth in this economy? They had this big investment summit yesterday. The whole entire city of London, where I am, was completely cordoned off. Everyone was there. 61 billion announced. Apparently some industrial strategy, French dirigisme style, kind of emerging from the ashes here. But people are not buying this yet. The only thing they've got going for it is that this government has not had a change of leader in 49 days. That's good. That's a start. So, I mean, you talk to investors, as I do every day, and they say political stability is important, but people need to know where the growth is going to come from.
Yeah, how many Tory PMs did we have, or indeed chancellors?
Lost count.
Everybody lost count. And just on the national insurance employers part of it, the Daily Telegraph are accusing Rachel Reeves specifically of being hypocritical about this, and this is effectively a U-turn on her own beliefs.
Yes, they have found something she said 2 years ago when she was Shadow Chancellor and commenting on Rishi Sunak's plan to increase employers' national insurance contributions, that apparently Rachel Reeves said this is the worst possible tax rise at the worst possible time, and said that employers will be hit twice. It shows just how poorly thought out their tax hike is. This is not a good phrase to have held against you. I mean, I think this lack of ambition shows a lack of confidence on the part of the government. The fact that they're not prepared to say, if it was Tony Blair, this is a very Tony Blair phrase, I'm going to level with you. You know, they would have won anyway. They were voted in because people wanted not the Conservatives. They could have said so much more. And it will be so disappointing if, come the 30th of October, all we've got is a bit of clever manoeuvring when it comes to language, and no big ideas and no kind of honesty with the public.
It would have been so much easier if they'd simply undone the Conservatives' national insurance, what's the opposite of a tax cut? Tax giveaway, which he gave us twice. Just undo that and be honest about what you're going to do.
You know, the interesting thing is, everyone criticised Boris Johnson, and I criticise him a lot too, and give him a good kicking when he deserves it. But one of the things he did bring in, or tried to bring in, was this increase of 1.25% in national insurance. Why? To try and address the social care problem, which leads to bed blocking in hospitals, and there's a crisis going on in that. We all know it, right? And we all know that social care workers don't get paid enough, and there's all these knock-on issues. Now, when that came in, I remember distinctly Rachel Reeves and her ilk saying this was an absolutely appalling thing, that in a cost of living crisis you're increasing national insurance. They were trying to address the problem. And now we're in the very situation that a Labour government is coming in and potentially going to increase employers' NI.
And separate to all of that, of course, front page of The Guardian, a photograph that was, you know, well applauded at the time, and everyone said how lovely it was and how positive it was. Now it's sort of, you know, it starts, you pick apart at it, and the revelations continue about Taylor Swift and the taxpayer-funded movement through the city.
But I would argue that the story, and to summarise, the story is, the latest increment of this story is, they got to meet Taylor Swift, and the question is, did she get a police escort because they got to meet her? That's not the story. The story is that this is still on front pages, and that it's on the front page of The Guardian today. It's not on the... Well, it is also on the front page of The Mail. It's on... The Times is talking about it at length as well. But the fact that this is still a story, and it's not just the papers that are constitutionally bound to be attacking the Labour Party, shows that there is a failure of messaging still within the government, and the fact that this is still running and rusting.
Do you think it's a bit unfair, though? Honestly, I mean, look, the suits thing, I think people can't compute the suits thing. But the thing is,
What's unfair? What? Sorry, which bit is unfair?
The fact that this is supposed to be some scandal of corruption, that they got to meet Taylor Swift. I mean, it's such a nothing of a story. You know, you think about their predecessors were giving knighthoods out to people.
But it is the unprecedented use of the police to protect her, which has led to questions of, well, even Prince Harry hasn't got that, and he's fighting court battles to get it, and yet then half the cabinet seems to have...
But Prince Harry can't sing. I mean, there's a bit of a difference here. The point... Sorry, Prince Harry. The interesting thing is, about this is, I mean, look, if you did a cost-benefit analysis of providing blue light support to Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift's mother, who's her manager, was saying, look,
call Sue Gray.
Yeah, we're not going to do this if you don't give us the protection, because she had to cancel some of her Eras tour in Vienna, I think, or somewhere. Yeah. Because there were threats, right? And it was a difficult time, and there was also that Southport issue where people had been killed on the back of a Taylor Swift-themed dance event, right? So there were concerns around it. They may have done a cost-benefit analysis, thinking, OK, the cost of doing this will be outweighed by the fact that she caused inflation in the economy.
It's the precedent point of it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but the question is also whether or not he had a direct hand in the decision to give her a police escort, which, by all accounts, he didn't. I just can't believe this is still a story, and I can't believe it's on the front of The Guardian.
But it's probably a story because they produced themselves to made out themselves to be holier than thou, and that's the issue, right?
Yes.
Rather than the actual substance of the tickets themselves.
It's quite a nice picture, though.
Moving on, I think, don't you? Lots more still to come in our look at the newspapers, including The Guardian again, a warning to Israel from the Biden administration if it does not let in more humanitarian aid into Gaza. Take a look at that in just a moment.
Hello and welcome to Politics at Jack and Sam's Daily, the podcast equivalent of a Pro Plus caffeine tablet that tells you everything about what you need to know in the day ahead in British politics in under 20 minutes.
My name is Jack Blanchard of Politico. With me in the Zoom call is Sam Coates of Sky News.
The front runner among the members, Kelly Badenoch, did much worse than I was expecting. Now, traditionally and historically, MPs want to rush to back early the front-runner candidate because it helps your chances of getting a job further down the track. It's good to be seen to be there early with the person who's going to win. And the fact that even though she was topping a lot of the surveys, that she didn't get more than 6 votes behind Robert Jenrick is very ominous for her campaign.
This issue had sort of bubbled away a bit last week. It was always going to come back this week because of the vote, but it was rather blown up again on Thursday due to a very prominent Labour Party commentator wading in on it and saying that Rachel Reeves might need an escape route. Now, that person was Ed Balls, who used possibly one of the most prominent Labour figures to speak about Treasury matters.
Oh, my God.
What happened?
Sorry, I've got... my cat is fighting another cat through the window. I'm going to have to stop it.
There's a cat fight.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news.
For detectives, the first 48 hours after a murder are crucial in the search for clues.
the public expects them to find Jill Dando's killer soon.
I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it.
Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Let's just bring you some breaking news now. And General Sir Mike Jackson has died. He was one of the most high-profile generals since the Second World War, appointed Chief of the General Staff, the professional head of the British Army, in 2003, taking up the post a month before the start of the Iraq War. Many of you might remember him from that. And then in the 1990s, he served as deputy to the NATO Supreme Allied Commander at Europe, General Wesley Clark, another name you might remember, and famously refused Clark's order to block the runway at Pristina Airport during the Kosovo crisis, telling him, "I won't start World War III for you." The Ministry of Defence has just issued a statement, actually, saying it is with great sadness that we've learnt of the death of General Sir Mike Jackson. On the 15th of October, surrounded by his family. General Jacko served with distinction for over 40 years, finishing his career as Chief of the General Staff. He will be greatly missed and long remembered, and then using the Latin, apologies for the pronunciation, utrinque paratus, meaning apparently ready for anything. The statement there from the MOD after confirming the death of General Jacko, as they called him. You're watching the press preview, joined again by Jenny Kleeman and Ali Marriage. Welcome back to both of you. I've clean lost my space, in fact, or where we're going after doing that news. But anyway, let's go to The Guardian, shall we? And the continuing issue about what to do about Gaza, given the appalling pictures we've seen recently, with the US threatening Israel that if they need to take more humanitarian aid in.
Yes, it's the strongest warning yet from the US. Lloyd Austin, the US Secretary of State, has written a letter saying that more aid must be let into Gaza within the next 30 days, or there will be unspecified policy implications. That's how The Guardian phrases it. And this is significant. It's Israel's closest ally. Whether or not this will be the thing that pushes the dial remains to be seen. But, you know, it is part of US law that, US laws prohibit military assistance to be given to countries that hinder the delivery of US aid. So, this is a serious letter that's been sent, drawing attention to those laws that will be enforced. But we don't know what that means. We don't know if Netanyahu will listen. You have 1.7 million people in Gaza who are being pushed into a narrow corridor. This letter warns of infection risk, a risk of lethal contagion if anything were to break out there. Things are very serious. Aid hasn't been getting through for a long time. Something has to change.
OK, I know we want to talk more about that, but do you mind if we go on to the England new manager? And the newspaper's picking up on a very German-looking Thomas Tuchel, to be fair. Couldn't make him look any more German in their picture choices.
Well, he would be. He is going to be the third foreign manager that England have had, after Sven Goran Eriksson and Fabio Capello, of course. Look, he's got experience in England. I mean, he did take Chelsea to the Champions League final. He got a victory there. He's quite a hot-tempered chap. I mean, he does fall out with people quite regularly and he gets fired quite a lot. He's got pedigree.
It's not a long contract, we're told. So
No, it's 18 months.
might
I mean, but it's an important one because he's got to get us to the World Cup finals. That's very, very important. He's worked with Harry Kane at Bayern Munich until he got fired again. But he's got experience. And look, there aren't that many people around who are available at the moment. At least they didn't have to pay a massive severance package for his contract.
Ali Maros, Jenny Kleeman, thank you very much indeed. Good to have you on. News conference, we are told, tomorrow lunchtime, so stay tuned for that. Back in just a moment.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.